Good morning, Mom. So, I'm just going to pick up where I left off yesterday, which is, I think, where Catherine of Aragon, the Spanish princess, marries her dead husband's brother, Henry. So, eventually, Henry VIII ascends to the throne, and they're, like, super psyched because she gets pregnant, like, right away. And they're like, yes, I knew this was going to happen. It was, like, meant to be. We were meant to rule this land, whatever. So, but she ends up having a stillborn baby at like 7 months. And Henry at first is like really understanding. Like, the people love her. She's really intelligent. She's funny. They get along. He seemingly loves her a lot. And he's like, you know what? Don't worry about it. You're grieving so much. Like, it happens. It happens, to everybody, to everyone. We'll just have another baby. So she gets pregnant again. And I think that time she actually gave birth to a son, and they're like throwing this huge party, which obviously foolish mistake. It was kind of like the medieval version of getting somebody's name tattooed on you. It's a terrible mistake, and it's just going to bring bad luck. So they're throwing a huge party, and somebody comes and grabs them and is like, I have bad news. Your kid died while you were partying. And they're like, shit. So this goes on and on and on. She has several more miscarriages, stillbirths. She ends up giving birth to one daughter, Mary, who later became queen for, that's a whole other story. We're not even going to go into that because that will, yeah. But, she gives birth gets pregnant at least 6 times in like 8 years. And he's just starting, Henry's like, you know what? Maybe it's you. Like, usually guys would pull the it's not you, it's me thing, but he's like, no, I think it's you. I think it's actually you this time. So she's becoming more and more kind of crazy religious, how some people kind of dissolve into religion when they go through hardships. This is what she's going through. So she's becoming more and more and more obsessively devout Catholic, like to the point of a psychotic break, basically. And Henry's just kind of like done. He had a few affairs here and there, famously with Anne Boleyn's big sister. But he's at this party one day and he sees this girl supposedly in a yellow dress. I don't know how accurate that detail is because every trace of Anne Boleyn, including every painting, everything of her was ordered burned after she died. So, but supposedly he sees her in this yellow dress, and one of the only surviving descriptions of her is that she had a pointed chin and witchy eyes. So I don't really know what that means, but I'm sure she was beautiful in some ways. There are some descriptions that say she was a little bit odd looking, but like kind of intriguing, like a Cleopatra situation, like handsome, interesting face, but not quite like conventionally pretty. And he is just enchanted. And Anne had been raised, her dad and her brother were both kind of Protestant reformers. Like, they were trying to get people off the Catholic bandwagon and into Protestant, which those were heretics. Like, when I told you about Thomas More, who would borrow prisoners from the White Tower and torture them because they were heretics. A heretic was basically somebody that owned a Bible and would try to read it on their own because that was against Catholic doctrine. So they're really, really smart courtiers at this time. They had kind of been falling out of favor, but they're like, we need to get back in there. How do we get back in favor with the king? Hot daughter. We're just going to stick her in there. She can just, wiggle her ass a little bit. He's gonna be like, hey, I missed you guys. Come back to court. I missed you, really. It was you. It's not her. No, she's great, but no, it was you. So that's literally what they do. They kind of gussy her up a little bit, and they're like, so go wiggle your ass in front of the king, but don't put out, because he needs to want you real bad to the point where he would do anything to have you, but he can't actually have you. And she's just like, okay. So she is her enchanting self. She's smart, she's funny, she's witty, she's beautiful. She tells the king like how badly she really, really, truly wants him and desires him, but alas, her virginity, which there's like no document saying that she was actually a virgin. She probably wouldn't, but whatever. Guys have been stupid since the beginning of time, and that she could have done the pigeon blood trick on her wedding night. They would put pigeon blood on a little sponge and shove it up in there, and then they were like, "Oh, look, blood! I'm a virgin. See? Ooh, you took it. Uh-oh." So, sorry, that was a lot more detail than you probably wanted this morning. So anyway, he sees Anne Boleyn, and she's like, "But we can't be together because I love God, and I cannot give you my body because you are still married, and we would have to be married." And he's like, "Well, I'll get it annulled. It's totally cool. I'm just gonna get it annulled. Like, she will not give me a baby." And she's like, "Oh, I could do that. I could do that. I have like gems in my womb. Like, I am all that up in here." And he's like, "Oh, yeah." So he tries to get his marriage annulled based on the grounds that there is some Bible verse, I'm sorry, I don't remember which one it is right now, but saying that you cannot marry your brother or dead brother's wife, which that actually is in there. I looked it up once, but I don't remember where. And he tries to get it annulled, but there's all these issues standing in the way, and they're like, "We're not going to give you an annulment." So this whole time, this is like years and years and years. It's like a 10-year period that goes by, and Anne is still like keeps his interest. Like, shit. There's a lot of reasons why she's my idol, but she was just a fucking genius. So anyway, she keeps his interest this entire time, keeps him wanting her, but she still won't put out. So like all these years, supposedly, she just hadn't gotten laid, but I'm sure she had, 5 or 10 boyfriends. So eventually, she's like, "Look, I've got an idea." And of course it came from her father, the Protestant, and he's like, obviously divorce is not allowed because we're Catholic, but what if we weren't? And she's like, "But we are." He's like, "But what if we weren't?" And she starts whispering this into Henry VIII's ear, like, "I'm just saying, I know that you're Catholic, I know you are, and obviously that's the best thing, but if you weren't, if there was maybe like a different religion where you could still love God and everything, but maybe like not quite the same, you could get a divorce, and then you could have this. I know you want it real bad." And he's like, "That is not a bad idea." So he decides to just like stop trying to get permission from Rome altogether and from the Pope in general. And he's like, "You know what? I'm starting a church. Church of England. I'm the head of it. Ta-da!" And that's how the Protestant Revolution, or the Protestant Reformation, was somehow getting that confused with the French Revolution. I have a lot of things on my mind this morning. Anyway, the Protestant Reformation started because Anne Boleyn had a vagina of gold. So I'm going to leave it there for now. We will get back to Anne Boleyn probably tomorrow. I don't know. I'm inconsistent and flaky. I'll do my best. Okay. Love you.